this presentation. I'm sure a lot of you see me always wearing a suit. And this is going to be a different spin on my presentation because this will be real life lessons learned that made my head spin. That's my title. And hopefully that will be able to tie that out to business moving forward. So let me start by outlining my first educational background, since Richard mentioned already that I'm really an agriculturist. This was my road to PLDT, how I got into PLDT. I graduated high school from the Don Bosco Technical Institute in Makati, and I graduated high school with a diploma for computer science. What that meant during those very early years, I already did software development. That was in 1989. 1989. So I was already doing programming for Turbo C, Turbo C++, Turbo Pascal, which of course during those times was all DOS based, right? So after high school, I really felt like a rock star, because at a very young age, we were actually the first in our batch in Don Bosco to have computer science, and we were doing programming. So I felt like a rock star, and I told myself, why will I take computer science in college when, again, I was already a programmer and I had a diploma? So I parted ways with my friends. They still took computer science in LaSalle, and I decided to take a different course in college. Lo and behold, during that time, Windows was born, which literally made my high school diploma on computer science worthless. So I made a realization during that time, which I call my realization number one: obsolescence. A real world concept that is ever so true, especially in today's business environment. But not only for products and services, I think more importantly, this is applicable to people as well. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later. Then fast forward, I went to the University of the Philippines in Los Baños, and I took up a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. I did that for 2 years, and then I realized something again, realization number two. I didn't want to make shampoo for a living. So I shifted on my third year to BS Agricultural Economics, and the reason being was my Spanish grandfather was a horse trainer, a race horse trainer, and my dad was into fighting cocks. So again, being the rock star that I am, right, I had an outrageous dream that I will be different than the rest. Instead of riding a car to work, I envisioned myself to be riding a horse with my cowboy boots on to my office ranch, right? And of course, the realization that happened is that my ranch office ain't gonna happen. My grandfather died, and that whole dream of doing that ranch thing and the horses and the fighting cocks disappeared. So after graduating agricultural economics, I found myself working for a bank. So from computer science to chemical engineering to agricultural economics, now into banking. I did that for 2 years with the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation here in Manila. And then after 2 years, I decided to resign to take my master's degree. This was really because I really wanted to work for the Asian Development Bank. And in the process of applying, because I really wanted to work for the Agricultural Economics Division of ADB, I found out that in the application process, the ADB personnel told me that as a minimum for you to get into ADB, you had to have an MBA. So I resigned from Hong Kong Bank. I went to AIM and took my master's there, the Master's of Business Management, for 2 years, full time, no work. That was the rule during the time. From there, I actually got lucky because after the master's degree, that was in the year 2000, there were 10 people from our batch that were chosen by PLDT to be part of their management trainee program. So that was how I got into PLDT. And the rest was history, and I have been with the PLDT group for the past 14 years. So real life lesson number one that I learned from that particular history is that not everything in life pans out as planned. It is our ability to adapt to change that will determine our survival. And that is very resonant in business today. But that was the short version of my story. But the more interesting part of this journey, where I got the most of my real life lessons that made my head spin, were in the in-betweens of these major milestones in my life or career, if you call it that. So allow me to pause and rewind a bit, but use my real life lesson number one as a takeoff point, which is adapting to change, right? So true and evident in business today, in my past 14 years in the telco business, we have undergone so many changes. Mind you, and I know that it is true also for your own businesses, the rate of change is really mind-boggling. The dawn of the internet and the business of digital by far has brought in the fastest rate of change anyone has seen. I won't go into the details of the technological changes because it is more of a leadership session rather than a technological session. And Richard has labeled me in this session as the youngest, right? And but if you take a look at the business of digital, I'm now 41. 41 is actually old in the business of digital. A lot has been published and said about the millennials. You've heard about the millennials, right? These are the age group of 20 to 30. And this is the group that is driving the fastest change in the market today. So 41 is definitely way off the 20 to 30-year-old mark. So I am part of the so-called digital immigrants. So if it is not age, what is it then that will allow us to cope and adapt to change? That's the question. I say it is the real life experiences and real life lessons that we gain. Each one of us in this room will have your own story to tell, but allow me to share mine. And adapting to change, that's the major topic. I heard it from the first speaker. We heard it from Chairman Pascual in the transformation. So it's really adapting to change. And the next slide has always been my favorite slide to show when I'm asked to talk about change. So there, change. Yep, that's me. The guy in the middle, at the bottom middle part. That was me. That was me. A real rock star. That's change. See, when I entered college, I was in a rock band called Nash. I'm sure you don't know us. We were not famous anyways. But we were signed up by Ivory Records. This was during the 90s. And we were fortunate enough to be part of 3 compilation albums, and we released a self-titled album. And that was a time, I'm sure there are younger people here also, where glam rock and grunge was in during that time. We were actually part of a triumvirate, 2 other bands that we played with. They still play today, Razorback and Wolfgang. So we were together with them. And to some Filipinos in the room, I'm sure you know Glenn Jacinto, who sang Lak Lak. He was actually my childhood friend when we were still 5 years old. He was my first bandmate, and he was the vocalist. He's in the States now, still playing, still working. Anyways, you must be asking yourselves, what the hell is the connection of this, right? We'll get into that a bit. Although this early, I firmly believe that these were the characteristics that I gained from this experience, like creative thinking. You can ask Mikey whenever we brainstorm for events. I'm actually the one leading, really, because to me everything is a show because of my experience of being in a band. And that's also probably where I got the confidence in terms of speaking to large audiences. because day in and day out, or I should say night in and night out, we would be performing in front of an audience from as small as 50 people in a bar to my biggest gig was about 3,000 people in Naga City. I was living the life, you must imagine, during that time, right? You know, college life, performing, drinking, of course, and everything that came with it, the total package. What our Americans call the rock and roll lifestyle, right? By the way, in college, I also joined a fraternity in my freshman year. And then, the unexpected happened. My college sweetheart got pregnant. I was second year college. During that time. Jovi is crazy. I mean, got his girlfriend pregnant at age 20. You have the complete ingredients for failure. Right? I mean, traditionally, if you look at it, here's a guy who has every ingredient for failure. So, my college sweetheart and I got married. That was on the left. That was the actual date of the picture of the marriage. Yes, I got married with long hair. We got married in August. And my wife gave birth to a very big blessing to us, our son, in September. Right? Success, right? In fact, the name of my son is Lars, after Lars Ulrich of the rock band Metallica. So that I was really a rock star. And the picture on the right is a picture that I kept, because this was a picture when I was in the hospital bed in Makati Med, writing down things, and I remember this very vividly. I was writing down things that I needed to do to make the change happen. Because I realized, you know, I did enjoy. I think it's time to change. And that was one of the most dramatic changes that has ever happened in my life. Imagine at 20 years old, having a son, getting married, rock star. How in the hell am I going to lift myself up? And oftentimes when I look at the business that we're in today, there are a lot of times that we are in that situation. A couple of years back, for the very first time in our history, our revenues declined, right, Mitch? That was in 2010. And I remember this picture, and that's what I did with the guys. We actually sat down, got pieces of paper, and started talking. What the hell are we going to do? And what are the changes that we need to do to make the change? Right? So, life lesson number 2 for me. You have to sacrifice to succeed. That is a given. Whatever your business is, nothing will beat hard work. And almost everyone successful that I've talked to have their own life stories and the sacrifices that they have made. And they inspired me. And it is my intention today to try to inspire something in you so you have a better understanding of what went through us in terms of the changes that we have to do. So, during that time, I made the ultimate sacrifice. I cut my hair. So to support my family, I was still playing the band scene, still second year college. I was studying and then playing the band. My wife sacrificed too. She had to stop studying, right? And I had to commute every single day from Alabang to Los Baños, UP Los Baños. And finally, I was able to graduate with my agricultural economics degree. And then I said I worked for HSBC for 2 years, and I was okay. But then I realized, so here's the thing. Something happened bad. I'm now back up. I'm now with HSBC. I'm now earning a decent salary. I should be good, right? Yes? I mean, any normal person here would have continued working. I'm sorry, I'm a rock star. I'm not normal. For some apparent reason, I decided to take that MBA. And since it was full-time, I didn't have any salary to support my family and my son for 2 years. Okay? So again, sacrifice. The sacrifices that you have to do. So my wife was supposed to go back to school already when I was working with HSBC. She also had to sacrifice because she couldn't go back because I was going to stop. Because I was going to study. So what did I do? That's why I call it real life experiences and real life lessons. What did I do? I had to work whilst I was studying to support the family, right? And this is the hard work if you equate it to business. There are times then that we have to do things that are outside of our areas of responsibility, right? So I tried my luck in commercial modeling. These are some of the projects that I did. And it was great during that time when you do commercial modeling. Print ad was the fastest money-making scheme. Because if they get you, they put makeup on you on for 2 hours, they take pictures of you. It wasn't computerized yet during that time, those were Polaroids. They take pictures of 2 reels for an hour. That was it, you get paid. So that was how I supported my family. And some bit of trivia, before I entered PLDT, the last commercial that I did was for Globe. That was fun. I was being interviewed by Al Panlilo and he said, "Aren't you in the Globe commercial?" "Yes, sir, I am." Anyways, sorry, I digress. So eventually I was able to graduate in AIM, as I mentioned earlier. And I was able to get into PLDT as an executive assistant to the group head of the PLDT Corporate Business Group, then Al Panlilio, who is now still with the group but is now with Meralco. And when you say executive assistant, I have to clarify to everybody that when we entered PLDT, even if we were part of AIM, when you say executive assistant, these are glorified secretaries, right? And you were made to do a short-term project for 6 months that will have to have a major impact on the organization. And from there, they decide whether you continue or not. But the good thing about my experience about being executive assistant was I was able to get a bird's eye view of the whole business. Because I was like the firefighter for Al during that time. "Jovi, there's a problem here, look at it. Jovi, there's a problem here, look at it." So I was doing that for 4 months as executive assistant, and I mentioned that it was a glorified secretary because I was fortunate enough to be in the room in the floor of MVP, our chairman. Of course, I didn't have my own room, right? I was outside in the cubicle, and everybody else who were there were all the executive secretaries, except me. I was the only male. So you could imagine that somebody who had a drive to excel, who was a rock star by mindset, I was getting very impatient, right? So after 4 months, I wanted to resign. And then something changed again, because they asked me specifically to create the corporate credit management group for the corporate business group, which I did, and eventually had it for 2 years. And during that time, another change happened in our life. A friend of my wife was visiting from Las Vegas. They went out, they left the house at about 9:30 p.m. And by 11 o'clock p.m., Makati Med was calling me. And Makati Med said, "You have to rush to Makati Med." So when I arrived, I found out that they had a car accident. Their car was hit by a 10-wheeler truck in Magallanes. The person beside my wife died instantly. And when I arrived at the hospital, my wife was half paralyzed. Broken C3 and C4. That delayed again my entry to PLDT because I had to stop. Because I had to support my wife, right? Again, another change. So now you're beginning to see how these life experiences that I've had, even if I'm only 41, I think helped me a lot in terms of coping with any change that's happening in any organization. And so just to fast forward, it was a miracle actually because after 2 weeks, I mean the doctor wanted me to sign a waiver because they had to operate on my wife. And I didn't sign. For some reason, I don't know, I didn't sign. So what the doctor did is they put a clamp on the head of my wife, put 15 pounds of weight so that the neck would be stretched like that. 2 weeks, she was out, unconscious. And then the radiology department sent a new x-ray, and the doctor said, this must be wrong. Because the radiology report said that the spine was normal. And the doctor said, how can it be normal? He brought out the first x-ray that the spine was like this. And the new x-ray was normal. And so to fast forward, I was out for about 6 months. She had to undergo therapy. She woke up, had a neck brace and all, 6 months of physical therapy. So I left PLDT for a while. And then fast forward, everything was okay. She was back to normal, as if nothing happened. Okay? And then, so I was already doing the corporate credit management work, everything was back to normal. Again, another change happened. Mind-boggling, right? The change was the, I call it changing of the guards. This was in 2003. This was when Eric Alberto, my existing boss, came into the Big Four. He arrived, Al was sent to Hong Kong to head up PLDT Global Corporation. And Eric came from Citibank, very multinational mindset, very performance-driven until today. And he told me, Jovi, I need you to go to Cebu and work there to head up Visayas Mindanao operations for corporate business group. And if I remember correctly, in less than a month, I had to bring my whole family, my whole house, my car, everything to Cebu. And I lived there for 2 years. That was also a very challenging time because if everybody who knows Cebu, if you're not Cebuano, the Cebuanos will not work with you. They will not do business with you, especially if you're from Manila. Because during that time, it was like the Republic of Cebu. They wanted to be separate from Manila. So it was very hard for me. And again, a lot of sacrifices had to be done during that time. I had to learn the dialect, number one. I joined the Cebu Chamber of Commerce. I joined the American Chamber of Commerce. In fact, I still consider it a joke, but I had to dance the tango in Cebu with the Cebu Chamber guys. Can you imagine a rock star dancing tango? That was a real sacrifice. But fast forward, they accepted me, what it meant for business. After 2 years, from a 250 million business in Cebu, I grew it to 500 million. Global. Of course, that was not only me. And everything that our good friend from Pascual talked about was the process that we had to undergo. And my vision during that time, which was the version of Pascual, my objective was to have a local Cebuano to head it, not somebody from Manila like me. And today we have that guy existing in Cebu who's managing that. So, fast forward, again, me and my wife, we were already ready to make a decision to finally settle down in Cebu. Because during that time, everything you can find in Manila is there. By the way, in the outsourcing side, that was when we had 0 call centers in Cebu. That was 2003. And after 2 years, we had 10 call centers. So I was also a witness to the growth of that outsourcing sector on the Cebu side of the business. So we were looking for a house and we were going to invest in Ayala Heights. We found a pretty decent place and we said, let's invest and let's stay here. Anyway, it's an hour's flight away. Not like the first speaker where New York, ako local lang, Cebu lang. But anyways, and then Eric called me again. We were about to make that investment in the house and Eric said, Jovi, I need you back in Manila. And believe it or not, in 2 weeks, my whole family, my whole house, my car was back in Manila. We left Cebu. And I think because of that, I was promoted to Vice President and Head of Sales during the time. So what I found very consistent in all of these life stories that I'm sharing with you is a very consistent formula for success and excellence. It's really change, sacrifice, and partnerships. That's at least what I found that I wanted to share. Every single change that happens in your business organization is going to be an opportunity that something great might happen. But you have to work hard and sacrifice, not only as an individual. I mean, we work the hours, 18 hours working. Telco, we work 24 hours, especially for the call centers. Right? We had meetings at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, by the way, that's where I had the blessing again. After the changes and the sacrifice, I had my Cebuana daughter in Cebu. Then come back to Papa. And then here in Manila, while I'm doing, I was heading up sales, that's where I had my third child, my last one, called Rocky. Rock and roll pa rin, no? Rocky. And then I think the biggest change or trial that we've experienced together, me and my wife. My wife was diagnosed with brain aneurysm. And that was really very devastating during that time. So she had cranial surgery to clip the aneurysm. And thank God it was successful and she was good as new again. I'm always telling her the sicknesses that you like are the simple ones. Spine, brain. I just forgot one thing. I forgot to tell the neurologist to erase all my sins when he was doing the surgery. Anyways, so change, sacrifice, partnerships equals blessings. And today, I manage the PLDT Alpha Enterprise in the span of that history of my life. In fact, when I was doing this last night, Richard, I was asking myself, am I going to die? Why am I doing this? Some sort of biography or something, anyways. I now manage the PLDT Alpha Enterprise, and as Rich mentioned, it is the enterprise business also of Smart, ePLDT, and PLDT United States. And together with my team, we continue our saga of change, sacrifice, partnership, which will hopefully bring us more blessings. And I think the reverse is true, and I think you're correct, Richard, when saying that you can do well in the Philippines, but exactly the reverse of the first two speakers. We are continuing that saga, and as we speak, we are establishing the enterprise business in Hong Kong, in PLDT Singapore, and we're soon to open PLDT UK. So we're the typical Filipino company now who's trying to branch out globally. And we continue to forge partnerships both locally and globally. And as we continue our saga, I'd just like to share two more real-life lessons that I learned. And the first one, which is very, very important, especially after what I've been through. and what me and my wife has been through, everybody, we should have fun. It is something that I see that a lot of executives fail to remember. And that's why even for PLDT Alpha Enterprise, what we try to do for our customers is to provide that entertainment value in our events. So you're gonna see here that, in fact, I'm really fond of race cars. I had the opportunity to represent the Philippines in a 24-hour endurance challenge in Pattaya, Thailand. I was part of the Philippine team in karting. And we were able to inject that into our events. That's why we have what we call the PLDT Track Day. And it was, until today, it's a success for us because we see CEOs who go to our events. They're like little children in Disneyland. And they really enjoy it. And in the process, I was able to gain more experience in terms of working with other cultures. This was the composition of the 6-man team that we had that went to Pattaya. So we had Filipinos, we had a French guy, Jeffrey Huber, who's our team captain. We had a Finnish guy, Pasi Ripinen. And that allowed me to gain more experience in terms of intercultural working relationships. And one very nice experience that we had in Thailand, the team of Bahrain went to our tent and they offered us a token from the Prince of Bahrain. And new partnerships, again, were forged, even if we were competing, which I think is very essential, even when you talk about business. And this is something that our chairman is very fond of saying, so I try to put my own spin on it, because you know our chairman, MVP, is very big in sports, right? During that Pattaya, Thailand competition, I met these 3 guys. This guy is who I was competing with, who actually became the Swiss driver for Team Switzerland in A1GP on the same year. The Team Telco driver, who looked so professional, was so fast, I couldn't beat him, nobody could beat him. But, you see the crazy guy, the 2 crazy guys there in the right? They knew how to have fun. Guess what? They were the one who won the 24-hour race. The other 2 guys were so professional and so serious, they forgot about what it was about. The 24-hour challenge race was also about having fun. And of course, our chairman also says that when you want to excel in something, you have to compete always with the best. You know, our chairman plays badminton, right? So he plays with the Philippine badminton team, Philippine national badminton team. And that's his way of making sure that he will try to excel because he's competing with the best. And then last but not the least, is I guess the main gist of the summit is really about leadership and mentoring. Now I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on leadership and mentorship, but what I found in Eric, who has brought to me the most change in my career, provides me the inspiration and also MVP in terms of how we do business and how we excel. In fact, that has been summarized now in our mantra. I don't know if you call it mantra or battle cry in PLDT Alpha, which is really work, live, alpha. So they say life begins at 40, right? Now at 41, I'd like to believe that I only just begun. So my mantra today is, to the next 40 years, I'm still going to be a rock star in anything that I want to do. And that is how you excel. Whether it's in business or in personal life, that's my mindset. I will always be a rock star. That's my roots. That's who I am, even if I wear a suit every single day. And I hope that the life lessons that I've shared with all of you, at least will, in a way, help all of you, and a bit of inspiration. My team is already sick and tired of this story. But anyways, good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And Richard, thank you.